Welcome to Moose Plays, everyone. I'm the Liquor Moose, and today we will be going over my draft analysis for Season 8 of the GPC, the Grand Pokemon Conference. This is not the PDL, this is not just a league with some friends. No, this will be a highly competitive league against other people from around the world. This is a league that I applied for, and I am so honored that all the guys let me join in on the fun this season. And I am really excited to, most of all, test myself to see how good of a draft format player I really am against basically just people I don't know. Because you know, like you can like skew your battling based on like your opponent. But I don't know any of these people, so it's basically just going against the team, which is more so how I enjoy to do things. But regardless, as you might have noticed from the title of this video, we have rebranded. Team Bumpin' Up is no more, and we have rebranded to the Toronto Razor Leafs. And I'm really excited to show this rebrand. I will also be rebranding to this in the PDL as well when that kicks up in May. But regardless, this isn't about PDL, this is about GPC. Yeah, so let's talk about the league itself. This is a point-based draft league, so in this kind of draft style, each individual Pokemon is given a point value, and each team has a certain point budget that you can use to draft your team, basically. The most expensive this time around, I think the most amount of points you can spend was 19 on a single Pokemon, and the least you can spend is like 1. 19 gives you something like Tapu Koko or Celesteela or Landorus T. And 1 points gives you like most of the not fully evolved stuff and like some other crap like Sunflora or something like that. But anyways, yeah, I don't know if there's anything else I need to cover other than going right into my team. Oh, Z-Rules as well. So we are given 25 points to make Pokemon into Z Pokemon, and to make a Pokemon a Z Pokemon, it takes away the same amount of points as like its cost. So if you want to make a 15-point Pokemon a Zmon, then 15 of your 25 points gets taken away and you are left with 10. And I think the max number of Z Pokemon we can have is 4, according to the document. But yeah, with this draft, you have to draft a minimum of 8 Pokemon, and you can draft a maximum of 12. But other than that, before the draft started, we had a few votes on some things, and yeah, so a few things that that are like considered ban worthy, I guess, not necessarily broken, but stuff that isn't usually allowed in other draft leagues. So I think the votes this year were for Mega Mawile, Mega Kangaskhan without Seismic Toss, because with Seismic Toss it's just broken, Munium Z, and oh god, what was the other one? Landorus I with Sheer Force. So basically, yeah. So we had votes on those, and all 4 of those things were voted to be allowed this year. So we have some potentially overpowered stuff that we could get. But let's go right into why you're here, to look at my team that the Toronto Razor Leafs have drafted. The draft order was randomized because, to my knowledge, there's a few new coaches, including myself, and we actually ended up getting the 4th overall pick. With the 4th overall pick, I wasn't really sure what I wanted in the draft. I had no idea what I was anticipating to get, but I just decided to take the best thing that was available, and like kind of the most interesting thing to me. And with the 4th overall pick, the Toronto Razor Leafs took Landorus Incarnate with Sheer Force. Everyone at this point knows why this thing is banned in OU. It's for good reason. With good offensive stats of 101 speed, which is really crucial, and then the 125 attack, which is good, but you're most likely going to be using that 115 special attack because of its coverage, because with Sheer Force plus a Life Orb, it's basically a free choice specs. Landorus does get a few moves that's like on the physical side that are affected by Sheer Force. I know Rock Slide is one of them, and I think I'm not really sure about any of the other ones, but it's mostly going to be a special attacker, to be honest. But I am really excited to try out Landorus for the first time, and yeah, that's Landorus. I mean, there's there's not a whole lot to explain about this, other than, yes, it is 4 times weak to ice, but that will be easily patched up later. So, going into round 2, I wanted something that could synergize really well offensively with Landorus. And Landorus struggles with bulky, levitating psychic types. I know that sounds specific, but it really isn't specific when you think about it. There are a lot more mons once you do think about it. And I wanted something that could punish those psychic types. I wanted ElScizor originally in the slot, but unfortunately it got sniped. So I decided to go a different route about checking the psychic types, as well as taking a good Landorus check off the board and bringing back a familiar face to the channel, and that is Weavile. Headdress Harry is back. I mean, you all know what Weavile does. It's super fast, hits super hard on the attack with knockoff, icicle crash. Like, knockoff is arguably one of the best moves in the game behind Scald. Ice shard is always a good priority. That will now never hit Landorus from a Weavile because I haven't. And another important thing is that it can Pursuit Trap. Probably the 3rd best Pursuit Trapper in the game, in my opinion, only behind the 2 Tyrannitars. But yeah, I mean, Weavile does Weavile things. I'm really excited to use this. Everyone knows what Weavile does, so not too much explaining. But I mean, it does get good coverage. Like, I mean, it gets Poison Jab and Low Kick, which is really, I think, all the coverage it needs. I mean, the only thing I think it could ask for would be something to hit bulky waters better. But yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to use Weavile again, and I'm really excited to pair it with Landorus. So now going into round 3. I wanted a fast electric type, and let me tell you, from going from Tapu Koko from Season 2 of the PDL to Galvantula of Season 3 of that league, I could guarantee you 2 things. One, Galvantula is not a good fast electric type, which I think everyone knew, but number 2 is that I really, really want good fast electric types. So, obviously Tapu Koko's gone by now. I think it went 2nd overall. But I went down the list of the stuff, and I noticed something in the 11-point bracket that I felt was a little bit underrated. To be fair, I think since the introduction of Tapu Koko, like, this mon fell short, because in my opinion, this mon used to be like the best fast electric type until Gen 7, when Tapu Koko just set a whole new bar for what they need to do. But anyways, this thing was sitting at 11 points, and I could not pass up the opportunity just to take Megamanettrick. This thing, I mean, what else is... I mean, it's fast electric type, so you really only need your fast electric type to do 3 things. Be fast, like, really fast, and be able to Volt Switch around. So I guess being able to Volt Switch around would be number 2, and then it needs a niche coverage move, which in this case, it does get Flamethrower and Overheat, so I do have some fire type coverage there. And yeah, it has really good ability in Intimidate. Like, Volt Switching and U-Turn with Intimidate are like really, really good. That's why like Megamanettrick and Landorus T usually make a good combo. But yeah, it hits that important 135 speed mark, because to me, and Weavile does too, but to me, I know most people say you want one Pokemon over 110. Me personally, I like a Pokemon over base 115, as that normally is what's going to be the fastest thing on the field. Even if you just get like something at 111, it's not usually going to be the fastest mon out there. But having just a mon like this that can always just outspeed your opponent is always so crucial. I had it with Megalopony in PDL last season, and the speed on it just was what made it so good. I mean, everyone knows what Megalopony does, and Megamanettrick is like the same thing. Everyone knows what this does. It just throws off amazing T-Bolts and Volt Switches around, and yeah, it does Megamanettric things. So yeah, Rush, by the way, is the dog from Megaman, not the band. But I mean, I do like Rush the band, don't get me wrong, it's like one of my favorite bands, but this was a reference to Megaman. But anyways, moving to round 4, I wanted a Steel type because very clearly, as you can see, I am very fast and very frail right now, to say the least. So I wanted a Steel type, and specifically a Steel type that could set rocks. And the one I was looking at was Bronzong, because it also took a bulky levitating psychic type off the board for Landorus to deal with. As I think Bronzong is actually one of the better checks to Landorus because it's also immune to Sludge Wave as well as Earth Power. But anyways, yeah, Bronzong got sniped from me, which is unfortunate. So I needed something else that could just kind of sit there and be a reliable rocker and be a steel type. And Registeel was still on the board, so I decided to take it. Is it a little passive? Yes. Does that matter? Not really, because look at those defenses. 150 in both defense and special defense, and then a respectable 80 HP stat. It may have like amazing bulk. No recovery, sure, but I mean it spreads around statuses very well, like Thunder Wave and Toxic. And obviously Seismic Toss to stall along with the Toxic. But another thing this gives me is reliable check to bird spam, as we know that can be really effective against with dealing with teams, I guess. You could argue, like, I already have an offensive check to bird spam really with Megamanettrick, but now I have a good defensive bird spam. So yeah, I mean Registeel does Registeel things. What else do you want me to say? Yeah, so that was Registeel. So now going into round 5, I wanted to get my fairy, and the thing with fairies in draft format is that there's like there's a very clear threshold. There's like your really good fairies and then your really bad fairies. There's not a lot of your like mid-tier fairies. Because at this point, I know I wanted to save up some points to get until the very end to get like one last Pokemon to really finish off my offensive core. So I was looking at the cheap options, and the cheap options were not the greatest, to say the least. Like Togekiss was still on the board, but Togekiss was like 14 points, and I wasn't really... I'm not really about that life. Like, I think Togekiss is worth for 14 points, absolutely, but it just wasn't what I was in the market for, because I was looking to spend around that same amount on my like truly offensive mon. So I went looking in the mid-tiers, and I found a very interesting fairy that is also another very familiar face to the channel, so I decided to draft Whimsicott. Disco Time is back. I know I just used him in PDL Season 3, but hey, Whimsicott, I really started to love Whimsicott by the end of the season, and I mean, there's very few Pokemon that offer the same amount of utility as Whimsicott does, and now since we're actually playing in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, it can defog now, which is amazing. So yeah, I mean, Whimsicott can do whatever you really need it to. It can fill the support roles with like Stun Spore and Tailwind and Knockoff, and it also gets U-Turn. But I mean, I'm not one to shy away from an offensive Whimsicott set. I've used Specs Whimsicott before, and it really wrecks teams. Like, this thing gets Hurricane. I don't know why, it just does. But yeah, like Whimsicott is, I think is gonna play a solid role this time around on the team. And yeah, I'm really excited to use it again after getting some solid experience in PDL last season. But anyways, that's Whimsicott. Excited to use it. Moving to round 6. In case you haven't noticed, we kind of have a problem here. I have 3 4x weaknesses. Landorus I is 4 times weak to Ice, Weavile is 4 times weak to Fighting, and Whimsicott is 4 times weak to Poison. So I wanted something that could check all 3 of those types. And originally I wanted Jellicent here, but my front office, which by the way, my front office is comprised of Matt and Mark from the PDL as well. I might ask Sean to join as well, but anyways, they saw something else there, and it actually fit my team better because it also gave me a spinner, which is Tentacruel. It's the other jellyfish of Pokemon. But yeah, I mean, Tentacruel, it's one of those glue Pokemon. Like, I find it similar to Seismitoad, or really like a lot of bulky waters. They're like the glue Pokemon. They're like the ones that really like meld the team together and make the team function. I mean, Tentacruel's always been like that kind of thing, and I mean, don't comment me about the nickname, because I mean, like, you knew it had to be that nickname. But yeah, Tentacruel, I mean, it gives me a very reliable spinner, and more importantly, a grounded poison type. So that means I can absorb Toxic Spikes upon entry, because, man, I hate playing against Toxic Spikes. They're too good. Maybe that's just my inability to deal with them, but now I have a very reliable way to deal with them. But yeah, I mean, what else is, like, Bulky Water gets the best attack in the game in Scald, and then it also gets, I mean, it gets, like, the second best attack in the game in Knockoff, too. Like, this is another very utility mon that I think is going to put in a lot of work for the Razor Leafs this season. So now, moving into round 7, once again, I did want a bulky Psychic type to take off the board so Landorus doesn't have to deal with them. I also wanted a reliable rocker because right now, Registeel is like my only reliable rocker. Like, Landorus does get them too, but I don't really want to run rocks on Landorus all that often. So I'm proud to say that now I can use the third of the trio, because in PDL Season 2 I had Mesprit, and then in Season 3 I had Azelf, and now in GPC Season 8 I can finally announce that I am going to be using Uxie. Look at those defense stats, like, not quite the same as Registeel, but pretty close, but like, it's also a lot faster with that 95 base speed tier. Also levitating, so a reliable ground switch in. But yeah, I mean, Uxie is just another Pokemon that provides a lot of utility. Like, it can set Trick Room, it can U-turn. It gets Heal Bell now, which is nuts. Like, being able to Heal Bell away paralysis on any of my Pokemon is going to be very, very huge, especially for some future picks. But yeah, I mean, Uxie is just like your general bulky Psychic type. I mean, again, like, most people watching this should know what Uxie does by now. Like, it does like some really cool things, and I'm really excited to use the third of the Lake Trio. But unfortunately, in the next round, my plans run into some problems. Excuse me. This entire time, I'm saving points to pick up Terrakion in the late rounds. But the Terrakion plan heavily relied on me picking up Druddigon as a low-tier dragon. As other than Druddigon, I didn't really like the low-tier dragon types that were available, because I think the only other ones really were like were Guzzlord and Drampa, and I don't really like those. But unfortunately, Druddigon got taken, so we had to rework a few things, like myself in the front office. But yeah, we ended up passing over that pick. We ended up taking a pick that we were gonna take anyways, because I do need a fire type still as well, and I'm not going the strat like my front office kept saying I could get away with fire type coverage, but I heavily disagree, because in my division there is a Celesteela, a Ferrothorn, and both Scizors, so I really just wanted a fire type so I could get the fire type stab, but I'm still saving some points somewhat, so I went with a budget low tier, same thing, duh, a budget fire type with Megmortar. This is like your pretty standard, like, budget fire type. I mean, it gets really good coverage. Like, I know it gets Focus Blast and Thunderbolt as well. And yeah, it's just, I mean, it's not the fastest. 83 speed is not the fastest, but I mean, 75-95 special bulk is relatively respectable. So it can be a good Assault Vest user. But even a usable 95 attack stat means it has the potential to run mixed. I'm not too sure about its mixed coverage. I imagine it gets Earthquake. I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't. But yeah, I mean, it's Megmortar. It does fire type things. It gives me the powerful fire type stab, since that's relatively hard to switch into. But yeah, so it was only 4 points. I thought it was kind of a steal, and I'm excited to use it. But now, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we were waiting for. After we adjusted the Terrakion plans, now is the time to pull the trigger and take the expensive offensive Pokemon that I know will be a test to me, as basically everyone who has drafted this since Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon has said it will be a test to them. And I'm very excited to show you guys my 9th round pick, which is Komodo. This thing got so much better with Ultra Sun and Moon. Now gets Close Combat and Drain Punch as reliable fighting type stabs, as before it had to rely on Sky Uppercut. And it just has a plethora of setup options. It gets Dragon Dance and Autotomize to increase speed. I'm not too sure if it gets Swords Dance actually, but that's beside the point. If I do, it's noteworthy that if I do make this a Z user, I am not allowed to use Clangor Soul Blaze, as Omni boosting Z moves are banned, as well as evasion raising Z moves. But that shouldn't be too much of a problem. I'm really excited to use Komodo because there's so much offensive potential there. Like it's an easy Pokemon to run mixed because it gets really good mixed coverage as well. It has, like, even though its attack stat is higher than its special attack stat, its signature special attack and clanging scales is probably one of the most spammable moves in the game. Probably along with Spatial Rend, but I mean, like, only one other Pokemon gets Spatial Rend. But regardless, I'm really excited to use Komodo. Gives me a reliable fighting type to check all the bulky stuff, and gives me a good setup sweeper, which I was kind of missing at this point. But yeah, Komodo, it's gonna be a great wall breaker, and like setup sweeper. I am really excited to use it, and yeah, that's Komodo for you. Now with my last two picks, because I was aiming for 11 Mons, not 12, even though we were allowed to draft 12. With my last few picks, I knew I wanted two things. I wanted a Ghost type for spin blocking, and I wanted a normal type to stop my opponents from using Ghost Spam on my team. Because that's a pretty big problem, I think, in most leagues. Ghost Spam is like a real big issue, so I just wanted that normal type to be able to check that. And I decided to get the normal type first because I was confused as to why this was still around, or I guess I was more surprised as to why this was still sitting around, because this Pokemon always gives me headaches when I play against it, and I'm tired of it. And even though I literally just drafted one of the best checks to it now, I still think it's worth me picking up, and that is Exploud. This is going to be a great budget wall breaker. I mean, Specs Boom Burst, that's really all you need, considering it gets the Scrappy ability. But yeah, Exploud is going to just hopefully punch some holes through teams. Like, if it's not like, I remember one time in another league in PDL, I had to come up with a fully specially defensive Assault Vest Slow King just to deal with this thing, and it barely worked because I had to rely on Focus Blast to hit it. Like, this thing just hits way too hard, even though none of its stats seem like over the top. Just with choice specs and the raw power of Boom Burst, it's just way too powerful. Plus, since it's a normal type Pokemon, sorry, it gets like ridiculous coverage. It gets Fire Blast and Flamethrower. It gets Bolt Beam. It gets Focus Blast. It gets Surf for whatever reason. Like, Exploud's coverage is nuts, and I think it's going to be a great budget pick to kind of round out the rest of my offense on my team. But now, going into round 11, which will be the last round for me, even though there is 12 rounds in the draft. I knew I wanted a Ghost type, but there was one there that I was also curious to try, because I've seen my buddy Matt use it before, and it just looked really fun, as it gives me also a little bit of versatility, but along with the Ghost typing also gives me a Grass type, so Whimsicott does not have to pull double duty in both of my Fairy Dragon Steel cores and Fire Water Grass cores, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be Gourgeist. This will be a good physically defensive Grass type, as I would really like most Grass types are generally physically defensive, sorry. But I mean, it has an okay special defense stat if I train it that way. It's more so probably going to still be physically defensive. But yeah, I mean, Gourgeist does a lot of things. It gets reliable recovery and synthesis. It can leech seed. It gets priority and shadow sneak, which is always good. And yeah, it just gets like the normal, like for a defensive Pokemon, it gets the utility that it needs really. Like leech seed, priority, toxic. I'm sure it gets some form of speed control. I don't remember. Oh no, it doesn't, because it gets Will-O-Wisp, which cripples physical attackers. Like Gourgeist is going to put in, I think it's going to put in a lot of work for me. I'm really excited to use it. Right now on the screen, you're probably seeing the stats for the supersized one, which is probably the one I'm going to be using the most. But I mean, I think I have the option to bring all of them. I'll confirm that with the commissioners later. But yeah, so that's the team I drafted. I have 0 points left. Now we just have to go over my Z users. And so like I said, we get 25 points. And my original idea of Terrakion, My plan was to make it and Whimsicott the Z captains, but since I actually went a bit lower points with the Komodo pick, I decided to make I actually have the amount of points to make 3 Pokemon my Z users. So I'm gonna make Komodo a Z user, Whimsicott a Z user, and Megmortar a Z user. And I think these 3 are going to be really great as Z users. Like Komodo with a Z Crystal gives me a very reliable knockoff switch in. And like, I mean, you know how it is. Like setup sweepers are normally some of the best Z users. And then with Whimsicott, I can use offensive Z crystals, but I think, or like I guess offensive Z moves, but I think Whimsicott is better suited for like the utility Z moves. And Megmortar, it's just like to break walls really. But I mean, Megmortar gets good enough coverage that Z crystal on Megmortar will definitely benefit it. And yeah, so that's the team. I guess let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm really excited to use it. And once again, thank you to the guys at the GPC for letting me join in in all the fun. I'm really excited for this season. And yeah, so I'm not sure. We haven't been informed yet when the first week of battles is going to start. But if I have to imagine, it's probably going to be 1 week. Battles are going to start the week after whenever this video gets posted. So yeah, keep your eye on the channel for the first team builder video of GPC. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.